when I was 21 years old, I was making six figures and I was working with sales people.
And so you don't know what you're going to do or what post you're going to put on LinkedIn that is going to attract the right person at the right time to land you that one thing that's going to change your life.
So what I realized is I needed to up my game in order to be able to be at the optimal level of performance in comparison to some of these folks that had 15 years more experience than myself.
Ooh, the Modern Selling Podcast.
Imagine having the power to identify companies visiting your website, track their behavior in real time, and seamlessly integrate it all with your CRM. Leadfeeder is not just a tool, it's your secret weapon for efficient and targeted lead engagement. What sets Leadfeeder apart? It's the ability to provide detailed insights into visitor behavior, helping your sales team prioritize efforts and close deals faster. With customizable notifications and lead scoring, Leadfeeder is changing the game. Ready to revolutionize your approach to leads and deals? Head over to leadfeeder.com for your free demo today. That's LeadFeeder.com. Leadfeeder.com. Don't miss out on the future of successful lead generation with Leadfeeder.
Hey, Modern Selling Nation, I'm Mario Martinez Jr., your host, and in this episode of the Modern Selling Podcast, it begins with a two-part series. Now, this podcast, you'll find me speaking on Trebor Johns' Viking podcast, all around sales, prospecting, and the start of Vengreso, business ownership, and all kinds of topics that you'll love. And so what I want you to pay close attention to is that we're going to be having two parts to this podcast. This is part one. Take a listen.
What's up, Mario? It's good to have you. We just met on LinkedIn. I don't really know a whole lot about what you guys got going on. I was checking out your product, and it seems pretty daggone neat, to be honest with you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, and what your company is, and where how it got started.
Trevor, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here with you and all the listeners that are listening in. A little background about myself. I'm a 27-year veteran in sales, marketing, and executive leadership. Literally, I started when I was 19 years old working for a EDI software, electronic data interchange software company, and I was doing telemarketing back then, now called SDR, BDR type of work. But those were the good old days where we used to use green screens and telemagic, which a lot of people may not even remember those days. But by the time I was 21 years old, I was making six figures and working full-time doing software sales. And then the rest is history after that. I've spent my time in the telecom space, in the infrastructure as a service, so IaaS, SaaS, which is software as a service, and also consulting services. And then about 8 years ago, I decided to open up my own individual consulting organization focused on teaching individual founders, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and sales teams how to go about engaging with their target buyer through platforms like LinkedIn. So basically focused in on exclusively social selling. And I decided to think a little bit bigger. And 1 year later, I decided to merge together 7 companies underneath one brand to collectively form the largest digital sales prospecting training company. So our focus was all around digital selling, and that was email, video, and LinkedIn very specifically. And we did form that company. It was a 7-way company merger. That merger in and of itself, I used to have black hair, and my hairline was right back there. That's
the truth.
So, and then about 3 years ago, we developed a piece of software to help our training program. And that was, 4 years ago, we developed a piece of software called Fly MSG. And it was specifically designed at that point to help sellers and founders and entrepreneurs who were leveraging our sales prospecting training to turn around and they were getting these playbooks and they were copying and pasting into platforms like LinkedIn. or cold email outreach. And so what we did is we actually built FlyMessage as a text expander, and you could take all of your messages, put them into the cloud, and with a few short keystrokes on your keyboard, you could build out the entire message anywhere online, whether it be on Gmail, email, on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, in Salesforce, and HubSpot. So you had all these places that it could work. And little did I know that grew its own set of legs for individuals, very specifically helping them to build out messaging. And so all of a sudden we had digital pharmacists, we had doctors, lawyers, accounts payable, accounts receivable. So all these different knowledge workers that were utilizing a text expander for this format. But our core focus began to be really centralized on the sales line of business, people who are responsible for revenue production, including business owners and entrepreneurs. And so we started to build out the platform to be able to help assist individuals with engaging with their buyers through platforms like LinkedIn, with being able to write messaging, and with being able to write social media posts, being able to write LinkedIn comments to engage with their buyers, and to take all the messages that they had as a text expansion software, put them into the cloud, and still utilize that to be able to build out messaging anywhere. Ultimately, it ended up turning around, and we started saving about 20 hours a month on average for our top performers, our top users of the platform. I decided that I wanted to convert the company from a service-based company to a SaaS-based company, and that was done about 2 years ago. Since then raised about $1 million in funding for the organization, and we started selling this as a sales-led growth model and a product-led growth model solution as well. So, we can go into details about what that is. But overall, that's been the journey. That's been the history. So we started out 8 years ago as a service company, merged together 7 companies to form the largest digital sales training prospecting company. And then 2 years ago, I converted and pivoted into a SaaS company. But here's the kicker. We never got rid of our sales prospecting training. Because what we realized was that our FlyMessage users, 50% of our users were still the sales line of business, or entrepreneurs, business owners, etc. And so we kept that content, that super rich content that we update on a quarterly basis, essentially to be able to, we place that on top of FlyMessage. So now it's called Fly Learning. And what an individual business owner gets, or an entrepreneur, founder, salesperson, they learn how to engage with their buyers. They learn how to create messaging that slices through the noise. And then we give them a tool to quickly deploy the messaging, a tool to be able to drive engagement, and a tool to be able to write social media posts. Soon we'll be adding in a whole new component of AI writing, grammar check, spelling check, all those things, which will be very, very, very cool.
Cool. That's awesome. We're really interested in a lot of like the SaaS. Really, what really interests is like the whole idea of going from exactly what you did, from like a service-based agency or business into a SaaS product, because it seems like there's like this, like it's like this gap for agency owners. Like there's a lot of new agency owners who think like SaaS product is like, that's the first thing I have to do. And then like you hear like people say like, no, go do the service side, get something that sells, and then turn it into a SaaS. So like, what is your advice to like business owners who are maybe unsure about that whole situation, and how would you suggest somebody to like identify when is the right time to transition from a service to a SaaS?
Well, it's a really great question, actually. If you think about our history, our journey, probably the better word, on what we've gone through, it's all based upon what your end objective is. So as an example, can a service-based company also have software? Yes, you can. Absolutely. Is it a good idea to be able to have software with service? Yes, it can be. And if you're completely self-funded and it's growing and is making revenue both on service side and SaaS software, then great, go for it. And you can create a nice company with a nice lifestyle business that you want to be able to create. Our vision was a little different. And our vision was, I want to be able to create SaaS technology software for the knowledge worker and salespeople, and have somebody gobble us up and utilize us in their larger infrastructure. So as such, when you're trying to do that, in order to be able to convert, unless you're like driving tens of thousands of users per month, and you've got a ton of money that you can throw at it, in order to be able to drive the growth that you want, we had to go out and get investment. Now, when you think about the investment route, VC money and angel money, there is zero appetite for an organization to have both service and software. You must choose one. So you cannot pick, you cannot have straddle two horses. You must pick a horse for the race that you want to win, and you must be laser focused on that particular race with that particular horse. Otherwise, you won't get the funding. So in answer to your question, you got to understand what is the end objective. And for us, our end objective was, hey, Fly Message, we're going to take this and we're going to sell this bad boy, and we're going to hopefully live one day in the Caribbean and be able to enjoy, margaritas for the rest of our life. That's really was the outcome and the hope. And so as such, our path was this direction, not the direction that I would have liked to have seen, which is to have both service and software all at the exact same time. But I understand why venture capitalists and angel investors want you to be one or the other. And there's real good logic behind it. And that is, you can't have your mind split on one or the other, because if your mind is split, wherever the money is going to come from is whatever you're going to focus on. And so that becomes a real big challenge. Other things that people need to consider is before you go off and do any one of these ventures, you need to determine whether or not the business problem that you're solving is big enough that is going to warrant you to be able to sell your way and to be able to grow revenue. And so I think that's a big problem where a lot of people individually, unless you're a developer, more like a chief technology officer where you can develop and build your own technology, in most cases, moonlighting something and seeing it grow is cool, but you're usually not going to explode. That's like the 1 in the 100 million chance that all of a sudden something grows and turns into a Dropbox or a Calendly or a LinkedIn or a whatever you fill in the blank, right?
Twinkle little star.
Yeah, but could you start building up a little revenue stream that is good if you're building technology? Sure. But if you're like me, where you cannot code, not a lick of code I can do, then you need people, process, infrastructure, all those things that help support the growth of your program. So what I would say is it really depends on what you're trying to do, and it depends on the direction that you're trying to go, and it depends on the end outcome. But the most important thing to be successful is you've got to solve a very specific business problem. And that very specific business problem has to be big enough that it causes enough pain that either an individual for product-led growth or a company for sales-led growth are interested in buying and procuring for solving that business problem.
Cool. That's cool what you just mentioned there, a no-code SaaS owner. And I think that's pretty cool. There's probably a few out there that are rich. And I think that it's like, I fall into that category. I know some code, and I try to learn more every day. And the thing that is just blowing my mind today, right now, in October 16th of 2024, is AI coding for me. I've gotten my hands on a full stack AI coder that can literally full stack code software in minutes, and it's ridiculous. And so I just am curious, where do you see the future of SaaS going with AI advancements in coding?
Well, I don't know if I'm necessarily qualified to speak to that, because I will be honest, it's more than just coding. As an example, I've got 2 brilliant engineers on the team right now, and each of these engineers are bringing something to the table that I have no experience with. As an example, they're geeking out literally as of today in our channel that I watch about how cool it is that they've created a individual process called the CI/CD pipeline that automatically pushes stuff that actually is validating against the rest of the code, ensuring that there's no breaks in codes against our current, automation testing, and how they've secured it with the HTTPS, this, that, and I'm like, does it work? That's all I care about. Does it work? And can we get customers, right? So it's more than just coding. And if I were to ever redo this again, I would 100% go to market, 100% go to market with a technical co-founder. Hands down, you got to have somebody who's as invested in the application as you. You have to do that. And if you don't do that, if you try to do like what I did over the last 3 years and learn how to be a CTO, chief product officer, and everything in between, then you're going to have delays and you're going to have lots of challenges. Even if you have a great development team. And I will be honest, I've replaced my development team twice. So I'm on my third team, which I believe is amazing and good. And my new head of technology essentially understands, like, look, we've been doing a lot of twigs and band-aids and, different infrastructure models to be able to support us. We got to do this the right way now. And that's really what he's focused on. And I really love that. And if I were to redo this all over again, I would totally make him my technical co-founder, right? And bring him through the process with me. With that in mind, where's AI going for SaaS in general? Well, first off, you don't have to have AI to be part of the your product, but you need to understand the workflow of the individual that you're supporting and understand the problem that you're trying to solve. And wherever you can, you implement productivity gains using AI. So as an example, with FlyMessage, we teach sellers, business owners, and entrepreneurs how to go about engaging with someone's LinkedIn profile, meaning how to message them, how to get their attention, how to be able to reply to their posts, how to be able to write curious replies to their comments that they're individually giving as well. That takes time. Example, our time motion study on just LinkedIn commenting alone for an individual seller. Now, this is coming from Vengreso, who we have a history of over training over 100,000 sellers as our collective whole. Okay? All right, 100,000 plus sellers. But here's the problem. When a seller goes to someone's profile, here's what they do. They go to Trevor's profile. They then look at your activity. They then go to all of your posts. They then read all of your individual posts. They then try to figure out which one can I intelligently make a comment on. And then they pick one. They then go to the comment screen, and it's a white blank comment screen. Then they try to write a comment, and then they edit it, and then they post it. That entire process can take up to 12 minutes. On average, 6 to 12 minutes. Now, if you think about this and you're trying to target 50 customers a day, you're spending literally the whole day trying to write comments. And this is where AI really helps in understanding the workflow. So for us, as an example, it's human-assisted AI. We do zero automation, and it's by design, because I don't want an AI SDR bot going out and writing a bunch of comments that may not even be contextually relevant, may make you look stupid. It may have a bunch of hashtags in it that you don't even want. So the key here is human assisted, meaning we'll help you write a thoughtful reply that's either curious, optimistic, or a thoughtful reply, but you're in full control over the final output of that individual reply. And that is where human-assisted AI is helping. So what we've done is that process is 6 to 12 minutes. Just on FlyMessages, we call it Fly Engage. Just on that, we brought it down to less than 45 seconds that it would take, and sometimes even shorter, because we're able to write our comments and we've tuned our AI to be able to help support our model.
Cool. And so you mentioned automation. And so that's really some juicy subjects for our listeners. And with the automation, you mentioned you hired 2 experts internally. And so this is kind of a big thing with agency owners trying to figure out, or companies, business owners to figure out if they're going to hire internally or hire externally for their AI, teams to build their software solutions or what have you, or the automation. So my question to you really is how did you select internally versus externally, and what was when you were deciding, let me find AI specialists or anything to automate certain tasks or whatever, like the knowledge retrieval for the message system or whatever, what was it like that you were looking for when you were selecting talent?
Well, to be honest, Trebor, I think the question that you're asking is one that challenges a lot of business owners. But I want to take us back to something I said earlier, right? So first off, we help sellers and business owners create more booked meetings and grow the sales pipeline. So if you think about the sales training spectrum, there's pre-hello to the hello, then there's hello to the close phase. Now this hello to the close phase, there are literally 25 major sales training companies and thousands of technologies that help from the hello to the close phase. There's very little that helps in the pre-hello to the hello phase. And that's where we sit at both on training and education, as well as on technology. So you need to understand first, before you start thinking of anything AI, what is the business problem, the area that I'm trying to solve, and what are the individual elements that I can do to really, really help assist someone in that area. And then you need to be thinking about it. Is it duplicative? Is it a competitive, me too situation? Or are you bringing together many things inside of a workflow that are going to help an individual, in our case, seller or business owner? Yeah. And then furthermore, what you need to be thinking about after that is, all right, is the problem that I'm trying to solve so big, so painful, that it warrants people saying, I want it? That's before you get anything to, should I hire internal, external, etc. Now, for us, it was a very easy decision in terms of hiring because we didn't have the expertise internally to be able to build software technology. So we had to go out. That's an easy decision. The next one, though, that you think about is should I outsource this to individuals or should I, bring on individual team members? And so to be very frank, when COVID hit the world, it created an amazing opportunity that companies didn't even realize that they could have. And that was many people started moving to different places all over the world, right? and working from the place that they want to. If you're going to be confined to a specific area, you might as well be confined inside at the beach. You might as well be confined
hanging out
at wherever it is that you want. And so what happened is that all of a sudden the world opened up in such an interesting way that now you could hire talent from all over the globe. So as an example, where I might pay in the United States $250,000 for a very seasoned 10-year experienced developer, I might pay $50,000 for someone in Brazil or for someone in Colombia for the exact same level of experience. And so with that in mind, it really helps you to be able to say, okay, I think I can actually go through and I could actually build this out, supporting the infrastructure, people, etc. The next thing you want to be thinking about is all right, so if I do have AI, who's going to build out the AI? So, and actually, this is really where it gets to, sure, might you hire an AI specialist to do all your prompt engineering? Yeah, that would be great if I had that. And it would be awesome if I was able to have somebody build that out and help do all the experimentation and all those things. But frankly, when you're a small business, you don't have that. So who do you rely on? It's either going to be your super techie technology guy that's building out the prompts, or it's going to be in combination with someone on the business side. So I went out and myself and our product manager created a 100-page playbook for all of our AI prompt engineering and fine-tuning and modeling, and we built it ourselves. And now as AI models begin to get more and more, what's the word I'm looking for? Sophisticated, now we're actually finding ourselves having to cut different things out of our prompt engineering so that it can perform at the most optimal level as these models get more sophisticated. So you can't just take what you did 2 years ago and say, this worked on, as an example, on a Gemini text Bison model, and I'm going to roll it over to, Vertex, the text Bison Google model, and now roll over the same exact prompt over to Gemini 1.5 or to Claude or to, and a Llama. And now you have to start really becoming essentially an expert at prompt engineering. And to be frank and honest, prompt engineering is not that hard. It's just tedious and it takes time.
And so, it's almost like it's really just like the creative. It's like, okay, so here's the thing with AI. You can give AI to anybody and they can do things with it. But then you can give AI to like a genius or somebody who's a, business savvy or creative. And it's a whole other ballgame because now you're adding that creative factor and that, that builder factor. And then you have this factor of AI just can really make expertise. Like it can take your craft, what you're good at, and just make you really excel at it. And so I think that's really the cool thing with AI. And there's a couple other things you were talking about that I think is great and is something that I'm really fascinated with is the sales training. And it's so important and it's such a big obstacle for newbies, for veterans, and everybody in between. What is your take on all of that?
Okay, so let me tell you a story. and I love this story. So when I was 21 years old, I was making six figures, and I was working with sales people. The next youngest person was 28. The next youngest person after that was 32. But most of the people were 35 and older. Now, here I am, this 21-year-old guy. Some of these people that I worked with could be my father, literally, right? And what I realized was that it was pure raw talent, being inquisitive, human engagement, relationship, that I just had this natural knack for that. Now, that's not true of most people at that age, and certainly most people going into sales. So what I realized is I needed to up my game in order to be able to be at the optimal level of performance in comparison to some of these folks that had 15 years more experience than myself and 15 years more experience with my competitors. So I went out and I wrote a check for $7,000 for then it was called the Miller Heiman sales training program. And you got taught on the blue sheets, the green sheets, the white sheets, strategic selling, large account management selling, and it was a 5-day program. And it was the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me because it really taught me all about being very fundamental in terms of engaging questions, inquisitive, understanding who my buyers were. And it was the greatest thing I could have ever done. Now, I tell you that story because that actually helped me accelerate my sales numbers and progress for many, many, many years. Here we go. Here's our kicker. Rewind about 4 years ago. About 4 years ago, I got 5 years ago, maybe it was 4 or 5. It was right during COVID. I forget what it was. So it must be pre-COVID. So 2019. There you go. I got a call from the executive assistant from the then CEO of Miller Heiman Training Company. Now, the Miller Heiman Training Company was and still is the largest sales training company in the world. It's a 47-year iconic brand. Then being a 43-year, 42-year company. And the CEO wanted to meet with me. I thought, sure, why not? So we go out to breakfast. I kid you not. I tell him the story about, everything about Miller Heiman and how I use it internally. We built our entire, model around this. And after the end of an hour and 30-minute conversation, we agreed to a deal on a napkin. And the deal is that we were going to consult with them and teach them all around our marketing strategies that we used to do on the consulting side for content marketing, search engine optimization, social media marketing, and we would create an engagement. And we signed a deal on a napkin. We then formalized it literally about 2 or 3 weeks later, and we started the engagement. Amazing, great. Then it led to, man, I believe everything that it is that you're saying. We need you to help our sellers. So here you go. You have the world's largest sales training company who had never, ever, ever hired an outside sales training company in their 43-year history. And they decided to hire us to train all 300 of their sellers. Now, this was a huge win for us, right? A huge win that the world's largest sales training company, who's never hired in their 43-year history an outside sales training company, hires us, Vengreso, the world's largest digital sales prospecting training company, to train 300 of their sellers. It was the greatest opportunity ever. So you asked me about sales training and what we should be doing. Look, I realized at 21 years old that I needed to up my game, both to be competitive as well as to be able to be respected in the industry. And from that time onward, I absorbed content like there was no tomorrow. And that is one of the fundamental problems that business owners and salespeople have today, is that they just wing it.
Wing it.
And who would have known, fast forward that at 21 years old and fast forward to 25 years later, that $7,000 investment got me a $250,000 deal.
Love it.
Right? And I would tell the world that the world's largest sales training company hired my company.
That's the money.
That's the money right there, right? So that having been said, look, we are very myopically focused with Fly Message on teaching you how to engage, on teaching you how to connect with your target buyer, because it has gotten so much harder to be able to engage and get a actual connection and an actual conversation with the target buyer. Okay. With that in mind, should people be investing in themselves in terms of training? The answer is 1000% yes. Things are changing so rapidly that the way I used to prospect as a then telemarketer back in 1998 and 97, right? The way I used to telemarket then is cold call, email blast, networking events.
Yeah.
I could pick up the phone, Trebor, and I could call anybody and they would answer. Fast forward to today, almost 30 years later, and every time on this call alone, I've had 3 calls went straight to voicemail. Why? Because there's a cool little feature on your iPhone and your Android, as if they're not in your contacts, send them automatically to your voicemail.
Isn't that great?
And so why is it that right now, if you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to call somebody, that you'll get about 3 out of 100 people possibly that will answer the phone call. 3 out of 100. That's a 3% hit ratio. Your email, a 3% hit ratio, right? So now what we have to do is prospecting has gotten so much harder that now as a owner, entrepreneur, salesperson, whatever the case might be, you've got to figure out which channel does Mario or Trebor like to engage in. Is it text? Is it email? Is it phone? Is it video? Is it social media? Is it an event? Is it a gift marketing scenario? And that's a minimum of 7. And I'm sure there's probably other channels I didn't consider here. So my job has gotten much more harder in order to be able to engage with our target buyer. So should you be doing training? The answer is, if you're not getting the optimal performance that you want, if you're not making the money that you want, if your company is not in the position where it should be, you better believe that you should be investing in blogs, white papers, ebooks, webinars, and YouTube videos. And that is why we've grown the way we've grown, was because we had all of those assets and we put a lot of that content out there. So anyway, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, sure. Great. It was great. Great advice. You've given absolutely great advice this whole time. And so, like, I'm cool. Something you said that just rang in my head was Grant Cardone saying, your network is your net worth. And, like, that is so freaking true. And so, like, you know, you don't know what you're going to do, what damn course you're going to take, or what freaking blog you're going to write, or what post you're going to put on LinkedIn that is going to attract the right person at the right time to land you that one thing that's going to change your life, change your business for the good forever. And so, you know, it's hard for a lot of time for, you know, newer guys when they're starting out to really try to see that vision, because, you know, it's like almost like, there's a lot of the YouTube guru, you know, bullshit. And so, you know, that's what this podcast evolved out of, taking calls with hundreds of business owners. And, you know, why not record it and make a YouTube out of it? Because it's just so much. Like, I don't get on one of these interviews and not learn something or get some type of insight into something that I already know and that I can apply better, or, you know, show somebody else to apply in their business. And so it's cool what you were talking about with the automation and the sales training. And where do you see that being automated, like sales training? How do you see that being automated with AI in the future, like AI professors?
Yeah, well, I think the latest craze and trend is essentially guided assistance. So as an example, I'm on the phone with you. We're having a conversation. AI is listening to our conversation, and an objection comes up. And as that objection comes up, the AI pulls from our repository of all the data and collection of data that we have on how to respond when someone says, I have company ABC. Then all of a sudden, right there on your Zoom conference screen, it pops up and gives you a couple of answers or bullet points of how you can respond, or on Google, or on, fill in the Microsoft Teams. And that's really where I think you see it going. The problem is that your training has to be kept up to date. Your content has to be kept up to date. And then your AI could also be up to date. And so I think that's where we see a lot of that going. And I think a lot of people are pulling that type of training in to help us as sellers as guided assistants. And that's where sellers need a help at, is the guided assistance. And we get so many things thrown at us from left, right, up, down, center, in the middle. And so first off, I don't think sales training is going away. Secondly, how we learn in the form of workshops, face-to-face engagement, answering questions, that's still not going to go away. But if we think that we're going to AI the crud out of everything, if we think we're going to be able to automate the crud out of everything, there's several problems that will exist from that. Number one, buyers will get very, very used to seeing spray and pray. And that's what we need to try to avoid right now. Think about this: 3% response rate on emails, 3% response rate on phone calls. Why? Because we're automating the crap out of this stuff. Where we used to send a LinkedIn email and get a 15% response rate, we're now down to a less than 5% response rate, because all we're doing is automating the crud out of a LinkedIn engagement. And that is not what we're supposed to be doing.
So there was this flood of like AI automation, email platforms, and like Instantly and all these things, and like made it made it a numbers game. Like, email is always a numbers game, but it made it really just a numbers game. It's how many can you get this message in front of in different A/B tests, and just because all you got to do is get it in front of this many people to get this many clicks. And so, that's really what it comes down to. And so, like, it's getting more hyper personalized now, where it can be more personalized, but it's got ways to go. And nothing bats real personalization. Like, nothing bats doing 30 minutes research on your potential client and then emailing them. Like, nothing beats that. AI doesn't beat that or nothing. But that's today. Maybe tomorrow, I don't know. The way things are going, probably so. AI is taking over. And so, really what we kind of focus on here with that whole idea is that, AI is taking over. So be smart and learn an AI job so that you can take, AI to the next job and be a manager. Because we're business builders over here. And so that's what we like to do, dude. And it seems like that's what you've done. Like, you're like a business builder. So it seems like we see pretty eye to eye on all this type of stuff. And so I have a couple more quick questions about like operational stuff, like the sales, marketing, content creation, lead acquisition, like all these things like that. Like you're mentioning like the outreach personalization stuff, like automating it can be kind of watered down. Like what other operational side of things, like what kind of task side of things inside the business internally do you think are the most attractive to SMBs today in 2024, 2025?
Well, I think one of the biggest areas of opportunity is what's missed, and that is playing the long tail. Most people are trying to figure out how to be able to get a lead now, and that's very important. And the strategies that you should employ to be able to drive leads now includes leveraging, as an example, if you type in sales referral, you'll pull up a great article from Vengreso, which is my company. And we have a 2-step process on how to go about getting a referral from within your network, right? So your network is your net worth. And how to leverage that. So type in sales referral, go find it. And there's also some great videos that we have on YouTube as well about the sales referral. That's a short-term play. You can do that over and over and over again and build a nice, pretty healthy business around getting referrals and introductions. Another short-term play for individual business owners is write a list of 20 questions. These are the burning, red hot, fiery, flaming problems or issues that an individual has that your product or solution or service solves. Then you're going to turn around and you're going to create an answer for those questions. Then you're going to turn around and you're going to create a short video that you'll put onto a free company YouTube site. Then you're going to distribute those questions and put them onto social media. And then you're going to start driving content. So that's all short term. Now let's talk about the long term component. And what most people don't realize is how to go about putting together a long-term strategy for driving leads and funnel and people to your website. And that's where we think about, okay, what do I do and how do I do this? Well, if you're in an area where you actually have competitors, the good news is you could actually cheat and copy a lot of things from your competitors and bring them over to your website. What do I mean by cheat? All right. So what I would say is you want to go to your competitor's blog and you want to start writing out the topics that they are writing about. You can easily read a question and you can figure out what the keyword is right from the title alone on a competitor's blog. And then you start creating those blogs on your website, giving yourself domain authority. Now, the key here is how do you scale that? And there are plenty of tools that you can utilize, both free and paid for, that will help you to solve that particular problem. For example, I just bought an AI writing tool. Can't say I recommend it yet, so I won't say the product name yet, but an AI writing tool for blogs that cost me $349 on AppSumo. Well, lifetime plan, I get to write 100 AI articles on a monthly basis. Great. But now I go take it I want to test that tool out, and I take the content that it writes and I go put it into a tool that I can say is an amazingly valuable tool, and that's Surfer SEO. Now, Surfer SEO is a prime time, bona fide product that will help you not only help you write content, but it will actually help you optimize content. And their AI writing has been impeccable. What were you gonna say?
That's gonna be for the click the link for the Surfer. When I edit the video.
Oh, got it. Okay. So Surfer SEO. Now, Surfer SEO, what it does is basically goes out and it looks at all the top 10 performing articles for that particular keyword phrase. And it basically analyzes all the words that have been written about it and how many times it says, if let's just say the word is AI writing assistant. How many times does it say free AI writing assistant, AI writer, tool, all these different types of keywords that you need to include. And then it helps you optimize your content so that you write all those words that are inside there and it gives you a content score. Then you turn around and you publish that. Now, some of the key elements that we think about in terms of how do we build the long tail. So it's not only just the content, but now you got to build in some graphics. All right. So Google is looking for not just words, but they're also looking for graphics on that particular page. Google's also looking for the interlinking process. That means if I have an article that's written about AI writing tool, and I have another article written about AI assistant, as an example, then these two articles are linking to each other. So we utilize on WordPress another amazing tool that was the Link Juicer. And Link Juicer essentially went through our 1,000 blogs. And I had to go in and my team go in and program every single one by one by one. And we go to the page, and when we went to the page, we said, hey, this is the keyword that we want. These are the variations of the keywords. And anywhere on our website that the keyword was used in any article, in any blog page, hyperlink it to the actual real article. And that was a tremendous, within 60
WordPress.
days.
I love WordPress.
Exactly. Within 60 days, we had 9,000 interconnections and interlinks into our website.
Wow. What a difference.
And a massive, because you can't figure out, which ones you did it on, and did you do it on every one of them, and you can't find it. So,
for a non-techie that doesn't understand, that's a leap in your status on the SERP right there. Like, that's big time.
100%. Then you look at, now you think about what does Google want you to have? They want you to have a fast performing website that is SEO optimized and that is not slow on mobile, right? Okay. So if you have challenges and you don't have the developers to help go in and clean it up, and even when you do, like we had 2 years development on JavaScripting and reprogramming, custom CSS on our website, I finally just said, forget it. We can't figure out how to make it work. So we went out and bought a tool from NitroPack. and we used the Google page ranker that told us how fast our website was performing, how slow it was on mobile, on desktop. And we were, in some cases, a D rating as opposed to an A rating. So we then put on NitroPack, which is a content delivery network platform, in addition to things like Cloudflare. It's for the content only, that first layer of content. Added it on, we got A's within less than 2 weeks. Now, those three things that I mentioned to you of what we did, we took our website in 1 year from 3,000 organic clicks to 35,000 organic clicks in 1 year, with the biggest growth curve happening in the first 120 days. So it literally looked like a hockey stick going from where we were at, and then boom, within 4 months, it was like that, and then it was now growth after that. And so those are the things that now we've got 35,000 visitors. Now you have the traffic. Now you need to start thinking about conversion optimization. And so, of course, we did a bunch of other stuff as well. And I'm happy to go through some of the other techniques that we utilize. But, you've got to take the time to play the long tail game. And oh, by the way, if you think that you can use one of these AI writers, like the one that I didn't mention in Surfer SEO, which gets us pretty much about 70% of the way there, if you think you can use it and just publish it right to your website, you're sadly mistaken. What you really need to be thinking about is you're going to have to put in 2 hours to 4 hours on every one of these articles, and you're going to have to read it to make it human. Google wants to see humanity behind here. Google wants to see that you are plugging in interconnected thoughts. And so that is a baseline. But then if you really want to get sexy on the long tail game, is you got to think about creating content in a pillar cluster model. So right now we've got 25 pillars. Example, I have a pillar called B2B sales. Then I create a bunch of cluster articles that are all interrelated to B2B sales. And as such, I make sure all 20 of those articles are interconnected with each other, and more importantly, pointing back to B2B sales. And so you utilize all those tools I mentioned. Another tool that I use, which I found on AppSumo as well, that I thought, well, hey, let's try it and let's see how it works, right?
Oh, you're like me.
Yeah, I mean, let's see how it works. I use a tool called URL Monitor. Now, URL Monitor was an interesting one, and I've hemmed and hawed over this. What it does is it goes out and it looks at your website and it looks at all the pages and have them indexed by Google, and it submits them manually to Google to have it indexed. Now, the reality is Google will eventually index that page no matter what. It might take them 30 days. It might take them 6 months. But they'll eventually index it, and when Google does it, Google will do it. But URL Monitor allows you to get ahead of the curve and start indexing content way faster, and it automatically does it. So it's combing your entire website every single day, every time you publish an article or make a change to an article, and it's resubmitting it to Google using the right number of metrics so that you don't get lambasted by Google for over submitting to the Google Search Console. And so small little things like that are helpful, and they add to the story. So overall, as a business owner, you need to be playing the long tail game. You can build your brand up, and essentially with a website that has that much traffic on it, it becomes a sellable asset, right? At 3,000 clicks per month, no one's really thinking about it. But if you were to go to sell your company along with your domain authority, you've got valuable domain authority when you've got 30, 40, 50, 100,000 people on your website on a monthly basis. That becomes valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can just sell blog. You can just sell, backlinks.
You could sell backlinks. I have companies that come from Oracle and Salesforce and, all the major technology companies that want backlinks from Vengreso now, because we have a solid domain authority, and we have hundreds of thousands of backlinks coming to our website. So with all that in mind, you definitely, we have a tremendous infrastructure, and now you start looking into other techniques to be able to drive leads and conversions. But you've got to build You've got to have a short term and a long term, a short tail and a long tail marketing game when it comes to lead development.
Yeah, I think that's very important to have a distinguished shorter term goal. We kind of call it sprints. We tackle our goals in like sprints with an overall like project, or really it's more of like an optimized round. So we'll do like a sprint and then sprint, optimize. But so it might take 2 sprints to get a good optimize. But so everything just relies on the data. And so like that's one really good thing about AI now is like they got platforms like theysaid.io, which makes like customer data, just customer what's the word I'm looking for? Customer sentiment analytics is really key because especially if you got like a product based business and just getting feedback on what the customer really feels about it. And then you can have a chat with AI, and AI can just, it's a really cool platform. And there's other ones out there, but, really optimizing with the data is if you're not doing that in 2025, you're in trouble. And so what do you think, or what are you guys doing with analytics, and are you using AI at all?
Oh, that's the bane of my existence. Look, as a small business owner, analytics is super important. We have many different reports that we utilize. One of the things that I found very, very, very frustrating was the fact that I have data from Google Analytics, data from Google Search Console, data from HubSpot, which is our CRM and marketing automation tool, and we had data from Heap Analytics, and which is our analytics tool that we use inside of Fly Message for tracking who, what, when, where, how, why, and never, ever, ever does the data match. Not even on Google's platforms, it just doesn't match. So it has been a really, really difficult time to think about analytics. I'll be honest, there is so much data that we have, and that data needs to be analyzed, and we haven't done it. What I did do, though, is I hired for a project, a guy that does data analytics for marketing operations, and he helped me bring together through Looker Studio all of my data so I can see it on a funnel report, that I can see how much traffic, what are my top trending pages, which ones are losing traffic. I can see my demographics, and I can see that all in one central place without having to go to Google Analytics to try to run this report each and every time. And it saved me a tremendous amount. It cost me a lot of money to be able to build it, but now it saves me a tremendous amount of time. So analytics are important, and they tell you what you should and should not be doing, what's working and what's not working, and you do need those analytics. What I would say is pick the big KPIs. If you're a small business and you've got less than, say, $1 million in revenue, pick the big KPIs. Organic traffic. Is it growing? Is it not? How many leads are coming in? Are you converting those leads into opportunity, and opportunities closing? And these are the analytics that you want to be thinking about. And those are the basics. If you can focus around on those basics very specifically, you will be effective, and that will allow you to be able to run the business until you get to the next $1 million, where you actually might be able to hire a marketing analytics person or a marketing operations person.
And then you might take a vacation.
Exactly.
Cool, man. So it's been a really fun chat.
Well, sorry to cut you off right there at that moment. That ends the first half of this 2-part series for our podcast. What I want you to do right now is subscribe to this podcast and listen in and get ready for part 2 of the Modern Selling podcast that you'll hear me, yours truly, speaking on. Listen to this important message right now.
Thanks for listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Please do me a huge favor and give the Modern Selling Podcast a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Oh, and don't forget, if you'd like to save 20 hours or more in a month and increase your productivity, go right now and download Fly Message, that's flymsg.io, for free. It's your free text expander and personal writing assistant. Hey, thanks for listening in, and until the next episode, good selling.